The Serpent's Crown. Part 1. The Poison Garden. The rain fell like silver needles on the cobblestones of Caldris, capital of the Three Kingdoms, and Mira Thane stood in the shadows of the apothecary district, watching a man she was supposed to kill. She didn't want to kill him. That was the problem. Lord Edric Voss crossed the street with his collar turned up against the weather, one hand resting on the pommel of his sword. Even at this distance, even through the veil of rain, Mira could see the weariness in his shoulders. He'd been at the palace all day, she knew, at the small council, arguing against the war. That was why the Chancellor wanted him dead. Mira adjusted the vial of nightshade extract in her pocket and followed at a distance. 3 weeks she'd been tracking Voss. 3 weeks of learning his habits, his routes, his weaknesses. She knew he took his coffee black at the Twisted Horn Tavern every morning. She knew he visited his sister's children on seventh-day afternoons. She knew he paid his servants twice the standard wage and had never once raised his voice to them, according to the kitchen girl Mira had befriended. She knew, most dangerously of all, that he was right about the war. The Northmark territories weren't harboring rebels. Chancellor Hemwick had fabricated the evidence to justify an invasion, to seize the iron mines and timber forests that would make him wealthier than the king himself. Mira had seen the forged documents in Hemwick's study when she'd poisoned his predecessor 2 months ago. That's what poison workers did. They removed obstacles for those who could pay. Voss turned down Coppersmith Lane, heading toward his townhouse. Mira's window was closing. She'd planned to slip the nightshade into his wine at dinner, but his household had guests tonight. She'd seen them arrive. Collateral damage was unprofessional. Going to stand in the rain all evening, or do you have business with Lord Voss? Mira spun, hand going to the knife at her belt. A woman stood in the doorway of a shuttered shop, tall and dark-haired, with eyes that caught the lamplight like a cat's. She wore a traveling cloak, mud-splattered, and there was something ancient in her face despite her apparent youth.
"I don't know what you mean," Mira said carefully. "Yes, you do." The woman stepped into the rain, seeming not to notice the water that beaded on her cloak and rolled away like quicksilver. "You're the Chancellor's poison worker, and you're having second thoughts." Mira's fingers tightened on her knife hilt. "If you know that, you know I could kill you before you drew breath to scream." "You could try," the woman smiled, and it was neither friendly nor hostile. "My name is Selene. I'm a truthsayer, what your people call a witch, and I have a proposition for you." "I don't work with witches." "You don't work with anyone. That's your reputation." Selene tilted her head. "But reputations can change, especially when the alternative is watching a good man die for telling the truth." The rain seemed to fall harder, drowning out the city sounds. Mira studied the witch, weighing risks, calculating odds. Finally, what kind of proposition? The kind that might stop a war, the kind that might put the right person on the throne. Selene's eyes glittered. The kind that requires someone who can walk unseen and someone who can recognize lies. Interested? Mira looked down the lane where Lord Voss had disappeared, then back at the witch. She thought of the Chancellor's gold, heavy in her account. She thought of the forged documents, the fabricated rebellion, the soldiers who would die in the Northmark snow. She thought of the kitchen girl who told her, eyes shining, that Lord Voss had paid for her brother's apprenticeship. "Tell me more," Mira said.
They met in Selene's rented room above a tea merchant's shop, where the air was thick with bergamot and jasmine. The witch produced a bottle of pale wine in 2 cups. "Before we discuss treason," Selene said, pouring, "we should discuss dragons." Mira paused with the cup halfway to her lips. "Dragons are extinct." "That's what everyone believes. It's convenient for those who would prefer the old bloodlines forgotten." Selene settled into a chair, crossing her legs. "But dragons aren't extinct. They're sleeping, waiting for the right circumstances to wake. This is a fairy tale. Is it? Selene's expression didn't change. Then explain the tremors in the Worm Mountains. Explain why the temperature in the northern valleys has risen 10 degrees in 2 years. Explain why shepherds report their flocks going missing, with nothing but a smell of sulfur in scorched earth. Mira drank her wine, considering. She'd heard the rumors, dismissed them as superstition, but Selene spoke with the flat certainty of someone reciting facts. Even if dragons were waking, Mira said, what does that have to do with stopping the war? Everything. Selene leaned forward. The 3 kingdoms were bound by the Dragon Compact 3,000 years ago. The terms were clear. The dragons would sleep, and humanity would rule, but only so long as the rulers were just. Start an unjust war, and the compact breaks. The dragons wake, and they will not be pleased with what they find. So the solution is regicide? The solution is the right ruler. Selene pulled a scroll from her cloak, spreading it on the table. It was a genealogy, branches of old royal houses spreading across the parchment in careful script. King Aldrich has no heir. Chancellor Hemwick is positioning his nephew, Prince Gareth, to take the throne. But there's another claimant, someone with a stronger claim and no ambition for war. Selene's finger traced down to a name at the bottom of the chart. Edric Voss. Voss is descended from the old line? His great-grandmother was Princess Marielle, who abdicated to marry a commoner. The claim was considered settled, the line considered extinct, but the Dragon Compact recognizes blood, not politics. Selene rolled up the scroll. If Voss takes the throne, the compact holds, the dragons sleep, and the war never happens.
And if he refuses? Then we find another way. But I don't think he'll refuse. Selene's smile was thin. Not when I tell him what's at stake. Mira stood, pacing to the window. Below, the rain-soaked city sprawled in a maze of lamplight and shadow. Somewhere out there, Chancellor Hemwick was planning his war. Somewhere, Lord Voss was sitting down to dinner with his sister's family, unaware that his bloodline made him the most dangerous man in the kingdom. Even if Voss agrees, Mira said, Hemwick controls the army, the small council. He'll never let Voss take the throne. That's where you come in. Selene joined her at the window. You know the palace. You know the Chancellor's household, and you know how to make deaths look natural. You want me to kill Hemwick. I want you to neutralize the threat. How you do that is your profession. Selene's reflection in the rain-streaked glass looked almost inhuman. But first, we need Voss alive. Can you protect him? Mira thought of the nightshade in her pocket, the contract she'd accepted, the reputation she'd built. A poison worker who turned on their employer didn't live long. But then, starting an unjust war that woke dragons wasn't exactly a recipe for longevity either. I can protect him, for now.
Part 2. The Dragon's Tooth. Lord Edric Voss did not take the news well. "This is madness," he said for the 3rd time, pacing the length of his study. "Dragons! Ancient bloodlines! Secret compacts! Do you hear yourselves?" "I hear us perfectly well," Selene replied, unruffled. She sat in his reading chair like a queen on a throne, while Mira stood by the door, watching both of them. "The question is whether you hear us." It had taken 2 days to arrange this meeting, 2 days during which Mira had shadowed Voss like his own reflection, watching for other poison workers, other threats. She'd found 3 suspicious characters, 2 of whom had been easy to discourage. The 3rd had required a more direct conversation, involving a knife and a dark alley. The bruises on Mira's knuckles were still fresh. Voss stopped pacing, turning to face them. He was handsome in a careworn way, with gray threading his dark hair despite his 40s.
His eyes were storm gray, intelligent and troubled. "Even if I believed you," he said, "even if dragons were real and I had some mystical claim to the throne, why would I want it? I'm no king, I'm a diplomat." "Exactly," Selene said. "That's why you'd be a good one. Hemwick would have me executed for treason before I could say the word coronation." "Hemwick is planning to have you executed anyway," Mira said quietly. Both of them looked at her. She met Voss's gaze steadily. "I was hired to poison you 3 weeks ago. The nightshade was to go in your wine at last 7th day's dinner. I didn't do it." Voss went very still. "Why not?" "Because I saw the forged documents, because I know the rebellion is a lie, because—" Mira hesitated, then pushed forward. "Because you pay your kitchen girl enough to support her family, and you visit your sister's children every 7th day, and you're the only member of the small council arguing against the war." Something shifted in Voss's expression, not quite trust, but recognition, the look of a man seeing himself reflected in an unexpected mirror. "You're a poison worker, an assassin." "Yes. And you're telling me you developed a conscience." "I'm telling you I developed a sense of self-preservation." Mira's voice was dry. "Waking dragons seems inadvisable."
Voss laughed, a short, harsh sound. Then he sank into his desk chair, rubbing his face with both hands. "Assuming any of this is true, assuming I believed in dragons and ancient compacts and royal bloodlines that matter, what exactly are you proposing?" Selene leaned forward. "We're proposing you challenge Hemwick's planned succession. You present your claim before the throne, backed by the genealogical proof in the ancient law. Hemwick will resist, but if we can sway enough of the small council—" "He'll have me killed," Voss interrupted, "subtly or otherwise." "Not if we kill him first," Mira said. The room went quiet. Rain pattered against the windows. "I won't condone murder," Voss said finally. "Even to save thousands of lives?" Selene's voice was soft. "Even to prevent a war? Even to keep the dragons sleeping?" "Even then," Voss's jaw was set. "There are lines I won't cross. If that makes me naive, so be it." Mira studied him, this stubborn, idealistic man she'd been hired to kill. Part of her, the professional part, thought he was a fool, but another part, a part she'd thought long dead, respected him for it. "There might be another way," she said slowly. "If we can expose the forged documents, prove Hemwick fabricated the rebellion, he'd lose the support of the small council, maybe even face treason charges himself. The documents are in his private study, warded with locks and guards and possibly magic. I've been in his study before." Mira's smile was sharp. "I can get in again." Voss looked between them, something like hope kindling in his eyes. "If we could prove the forgery, if we could stop the war without bloodshed—" "Then we'd still need you to claim the throne," Selene interrupted. "Aldrich is dying. The succession will happen within months, possibly weeks. If Hemwick's nephew takes the crown, the compact breaks regardless. The dragons wake." "You keep saying that as if it's certain." "It is certain." Selene's voice carried absolute conviction. "I am a truthsayer, Lord Voss. I cannot lie, and I can recognize lies in others. What I tell you is truth. The dragons are waking, the compact is fraying, and you are the only legitimate heir who can prevent catastrophe." Voss stood, walking to the window. Outside, the city of Cauldres glittered in the night, thousands of lights marking thousands of lives. Mira watched him, saw the weight settling onto his shoulders. "If I do this," he said quietly, "if I claim the throne, I'll need allies, real ones, not just a witch and an assassin." "We can get you allies," Mira said. "Give me 3 days." 3 days to steal documents from the Chancellor's study, expose a conspiracy, and build support for a regicide without actually committing regicide? Voss's laugh was strained. "Simple."
I didn't say simple, I said possible. Mira moved toward the door. Lock your doors, don't drink anything you didn't pour yourself, and trust no one except us. Should I trust you? Mira paused, one hand on the door handle. She looked back at him, this good man in a corrupt world, and felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest, something almost like loyalty. No, she said honestly, but I'm your best option. 3 days. It should have been impossible. Mira made it work. The first day, she broke into Chancellor Hemwick's study during a small council session when the palace was busy and the guards were focused elsewhere. The wards were complex, but she'd learned their patterns during her previous visit. She found the forged documents exactly where she remembered them, in a locked drawer behind a false panel in the bookcase, alongside correspondence with the forger and payment records. She photographed everything with a memory crystal, a piece of witch tech Selene had provided. The crystal would hold perfect images of the documents, unchangeable and verifiable. The second day, she visited 3 members of the small council in their homes, separately and discreetly. Lord Admiral Kenton, who'd lost 2 sons in the last war and had no appetite for another. Lady Treasurer Vex, who'd been quietly blocking Hemwick's military funding requests, and High Judge Morven, who cared more about law than politics. She showed them the crystal images, watched their faces change from skepticism to shock to rage. Hemwick will deny it, Lady Vex said, her voice tight. He'll claim the documents are fabricated. Then let him deny it under truthsayer oath. I know a witch who can administer it. The third day, everything went wrong. Mira arrived at Voss's townhouse to find the door ajar and blood on the threshold. She drew her knife and slipped inside, moving silent as shadow through the darkened hallway. She found Voss in his study, bleeding from a shoulder wound, locked in combat with a man in dark leather, another assassin, one she recognized, Torvin Grey, the Chancellor's finest blade. Mira didn't hesitate. She threw her knife, catching Torvin in the back of the thigh. He staggered, and Voss drove him back with a desperate swing of his letter opener. The assassin retreated toward the window, and Mira moved to intercept. But Torvin was faster. He crashed through the glass and disappeared into the night, leaving blood and rain and broken glass in his wake. Voss collapsed against his desk, breathing hard. The wound in his shoulder was deep, but not fatal. Mira was at his side in seconds, tearing his shirt to expose the injury. "Hold still," she said, pulling bandages from her pack. "He was waiting for me," Voss gasped. "In the dark. How did he know?" "Hemwick knows we're moving against him." Mira worked quickly, binding the wound. "Someone talked, or he has spies we didn't account for. Either way, we're out of time." "The small council meets tomorrow. Edric will be there." Voss gritted his teeth as Mira pulled the bandage tight. "If we're going to make our move, it has to be then." "You're injured." "I'll manage." His hand caught hers, stilling her movements. "Mira, if this goes badly..." "It won't." "If it does," he insisted, "I want you to know, you didn't have to do any of this. You could have walked away." She met his eyes, so close she could see the flecks of blue in the gray, could feel the warmth of his skin under her fingers, the steady beat of his pulse. "So could you," she said quietly. For a moment, neither of them moved. The rain fell outside, the wind whistled through the broken window, and something unspoken passed between them in the shadows. Then Selene's voice echoed up from downstairs. "If you two are finished bleeding and bonding, we have a coup to plan." Mira pulled away, ignoring the heat in her face. "Coming." But as she helped Voss to his feet, his hand lingered in hers a moment longer than necessary, and she didn't pull away. Part 3. The Broken Crown. The throne room of Caldrus was built to intimidate. Soaring columns of black marble, stained glass windows depicting ancient victories, and the dragon throne itself, carved from a single piece of obsidian, with wings spread and jaws open in eternal challenge. Mira stood in the gallery with the other observers, watching as the small council assembled below. Chancellor Hemwick sat at the king's right hand, his nephew, Prince Gareth, beside him. Both were expressions of smug certainty. They didn't know what was coming. King Aldric looked terrible. The wasting sickness had hollowed him out, left him a ghost of the warrior king he'd once been. He slumped on the dragon throne, breathing labored, while a physician hovered nearby. "The council will come to order," Hemwick announced. His voice carried through the hall, smooth and confident. "We have 2 matters to address. First, the military appropriation for the Northmark campaign. Second, the formal recognition of Prince Gareth as heir designate." "I have a 3rd matter to raise," Lord Voss said, standing. Hemwick's expression didn't change, but Mira caught the slight tightening around his eyes. "The council recognizes Lord Voss." Voss walked to the center of the chamber, his wounded shoulder hidden beneath his formal coat. Beside Mira in the gallery, Selene whispered an incantation under her breath, her fingers moving in complex patterns. Truth magic, to ensure no lies could be spoken in the chamber. "My lords and ladies," Voss began, "I stand before you to present evidence of treason at the highest levels of our government." The chamber erupted. Hemwick surged to his feet, face reddening. "This is an outrage. Lord Voss, you exceed your—" "I have proof," Voss cut him off, his voice sharp, "that the rebellion in Northmark was fabricated, that the documents justifying military action were forged on the order of Chancellor Hemwick, and that this council has been deceived into authorizing an illegal war."
He produced the memory crystal, holding it up so it caught the light. "This crystal contains irrefutable images of the forged documents, along with correspondence proving the Chancellor's involvement. I ask that it be entered into the record and examined by the High Judge." High Judge Morven rose, her severe face unreadable. "I will examine the evidence." "This is absurd," Hemwick snarled. "A crystal can be tampered with. Images can be fabricated. Lord Voss is attempting a coup based on—" "Then submit to truthsayer oath," Selene called from the gallery. All eyes turned to her. She descended the stairs with unhurried grace, her witch's cloak marking her clearly. "I am Selene of the Eastern Covens, sworn truthsayer," she announced. "Under ancient law, I offer my services to this council. Let any who dispute Lord Voss's claims speak their truth under oath, and I will know if they lie." Hemwick's face had gone from red to pale. "The council does not recognize witch law." "The council recognizes all laws of the 3 kingdoms," King Aldric rasped, his voice weak but firm, "including the ancient compact that gives truthsayers authority in matters of treason." He looked at Selene with rheumy eyes. "You may proceed." Selene's smile was sharp. "Chancellor Hemwick, did you commission the forging of documents to fabricate evidence of rebellion in Northmark?" The silence in the chamber was absolute. Hemwick stood frozen, his mouth working soundlessly. In the gallery, Mira's hand moved to her knife. If he tried to flee— "Answer the question, Chancellor," the king commanded. Hemwick's shoulders sagged. "Yes." The chamber exploded into chaos, counselors shouting, guards moving forward, Prince Gareth staring at his uncle in horror. Through it all, Mira watched Voss, saw him standing straight and resolute in the center of the storm he'd created. "Order!" The king's voice cracked like a whip, silencing the din. "Chancellor Hemwick, you are hereby removed from office and placed under arrest for treason. Guards, take him." As the guards moved to comply, Hemwick's hand went to his belt. Mira saw the flash of metal, saw him pull a vial from his coat. Poison, she realized. He's going to take poison rather than face trial. She was moving before she thought, vaulting over the gallery rail and dropping to the chamber floor. Her throwing knife caught the vial before Hemwick could drink, shattering it against the marble. Hemwick spun to face her, recognition dawning. You were supposed to kill him." "I changed my mind," Mira said coldly. The guards seized Hemwick, dragging him toward the chamber doors. He fought them, screaming threats and accusations, but his voice faded as they hauled him away. In the sudden quiet, King Aldric looked at Mira with something like amusement. You're the poison worker, the one who was hired to kill Lord Voss."
I was, Your Majesty. And yet he lives? I found better employment. The king's laugh turned into a cough. When he recovered, he gestured to Voss. "Approach, Lord Edric." Voss climbed the steps to the throne, kneeling before the dying king. "You've saved this kingdom from a war it didn't need and exposed a traitor it couldn't afford," Aldrich said quietly. "That takes courage, integrity, the qualities of a king." "Your Majesty, I'm not—" "I know who you are, boy. I've known for years." Aldrich's smile was sad. "Your great-grandmother was my favorite aunt. She chose love over duty, and I never blamed her for it. But duty remains." He reached up, removing the thin circlet from his brow. His hands shook as he held it out to Voss. "The doctors give me days, perhaps hours. I have no heir, and I will not leave this kingdom to Hemwick's nephew. You are of the blood royal. You have the strength to lead, and by the ancient compact that binds us all," his voice grew stronger, resonating with old power, "you are my chosen successor. Will you accept?" Voss looked at the crown, then out at the assembled council. His eyes found Mira's across the chamber. She saw the question there, the doubt, the fear. She nodded once. Voss turned back to the king. "I accept, Your Majesty, if the council will have me." "The council recognizes the succession," High Judge Morven said firmly. "Lord Edric Voss of the line of Meriel is hereby named heir to the dragon throne." One by one, the councillors stood and bowed. Even Prince Gareth, looking shaken but relieved, bent his knee. Aldrich placed the crown on Voss's head. "Rise, King Edric, and do better than I did."
Part 4. The Dragon's Price. The coronation was held 3 days later, after King Aldrich passed peacefully in his sleep. It was a modest affair by royal standards. The kingdom was in turmoil. Hemwick's co-conspirators were being rounded up, and there was no appetite for lavish celebration. Mira watched from the shadows of the throne room, wearing borrowed courtier's clothing that felt strange after years in leather and dark cloth. She'd been offered a position in the new king's household, Captain of Intelligence, they called it, a sanitized title for spy master, but she hadn't yet given her answer. She wasn't sure she belonged in a palace. After the ceremony, after the oaths and the formal recognition, Voss, King Edric now, found her on one of the palace balconies. He still wore his coronation robes, the crown sitting awkwardly on his head like he hadn't quite figured out how to wear it yet. "Hiding?" he asked, joining her at the rail. "Observing. Old habits." They stood in comfortable silence, looking out over the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. "I signed the order canceling the Northmark campaign today, sent messengers to the border. The troops should be standing down by week's end." "That's good." "It is." He turned to face her. "Mira, I need to know, will you stay? The kingdom needs your skills and—" He hesitated. "I need your counsel. You see things clearly, without the politics and posturing." "I'm an assassin." "You're whatever you choose to be." His voice was gentle. "The past doesn't have to define the future." Mira thought about that, thought about the years she'd spent in shadows, dealing in poison and death, thought about the kitchen girl's smile when Lord Voss had paid for her brother's apprenticeship, thought about the soldiers who would live because a war had been prevented, thought about the way Edric's hand had felt in hers that night in his study. "If I stay," she said slowly, "I can't just be your spy master. I'd need access to everything, the council meetings, the state documents, the private correspondence. I'd need to be able to speak freely, even when my counsel isn't what you want to hear." "Done." "And I keep my weapons, always. I wouldn't have it any other way," he smiled. Is that a yes?" Before she could answer, a sound like distant thunder rolled across the sky. Both of them looked up, and Mira's breath caught. A shape moved against the sunset, vast and serpentine, wings that spanned half the sky, scales that glittered like gemstones, a body that seemed to be made of living fire. A dragon. It circled the palace once, twice, its shadow falling across the city like a promise or a warning. Then it wheeled away, flying north toward the mountains, leaving a trail of shimmer in the air. "Gods above," Edric breathed. Selene appeared beside them, silent as smoke. "The compact recognizes your claim. The dragon returns to its sleep." "That was real," Edric said, staring after the vanished shape. "Everything you said, the dragons, the compact, all of it real." "I'm a truthsayer," Selene said, amused. "I told you I don't lie." "What happens now?" Mira asked. "The dragon sleeps, but for how long?" "That depends on you," Selene looked at Edric. "On whether you rule justly, on whether the kingdom holds to the old laws. The dragons are patient, but they are not forgiving. Break the compact again, and next time they won't simply fly overhead as a warning." Edric's hand found the rail, gripping it tight. "Then I'd better be a good king." "You will be," Mira said. She surprised herself with the certainty in her voice. He looked at her, and something passed between them in that moment. Recognition, understanding, the beginning of something neither of them had words for yet. "Stay," he said quietly. "Please." Mira thought of all the reasons to refuse. The danger, the politics, the target she'd be painting on her back. She thought of all the people who'd want the king's spymaster dead. Then she thought of dragons sleeping in mountains, of wars prevented, of good men trying to do better. She thought of second chances and new beginnings, and the strange, terrifying possibility of being something other than what she'd always been. "All right, I'll stay." Edric's smile was like dawn breaking. Selene laughed softly and faded back into the shadows, leaving them alone on the balcony as the last light died in the west. "I should warn you, being close to the king is dangerous. You'll have enemies. People who want to hurt me will try to hurt you." "I'm not worried." "You should be." "I am." Mira turned to face him fully, close enough that she could see the worry in his eyes, the new weight of responsibility. Close enough that when she spoke, her words were for him alone. "I've spent my life in danger, Edric. I've walked through poisons and plots and shadows, and I've survived them all. But you—" She reached up, her fingers brushing the crown on his head. "You're the dangerous one. You make me believe things could be different, that I could be different." "Is that so terrible?" "It's terrifying." His hand came up to cover hers, warm and solid. "Then we'll be terrified together." He leaned down and she rose up, and their lips met in the growing dark. It was a gentle kiss, tentative and careful, two people learning the shape of something new. When they parted, Mira rested her forehead against his, breathing in the scent of him, ink and leather and the faint spice of ceremonial incense. "The council won't like this," she murmured. "The king courting his spymaster." "The council can adjust. I'm not hiding what I feel, not anymore." He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "Though perhaps we should be discreet, for now." "Discreet, right." Mira's smile was wry. "I'm very good at discreet." They stood together on the balcony as night fell over Caldrus, over the three kingdoms, over the sleeping dragons in their mountain lairs. Somewhere in the city, bells rang to celebrate the new king. Somewhere, Hemwick sat in a cell awaiting trial. Somewhere, soldiers were standing down from a war that would never happen. And on a palace balcony, a poison worker and a king held each other in the dark and dared to hope for a better future.
Part 5. The Council of Serpents. 3 months into Edric's reign, winter came to Caldrus with unusual fury.
Snow piled in the streets, and the palace braziers burned day and night against the cold. Mira stood in the council chamber, dressed now in the dark blue of the Royal Intelligence Service, listening to Lord Admiral Kenton report on naval movements. "Pirates in the southern straits, Your Majesty. They've taken 2 merchant vessels in the past week. We should dispatch a squadron." "Do it," Edric said, but his attention was elsewhere. Mira followed his gaze to the windows, where snow fell in thick curtains. She knew what he was thinking, the same thing she was thinking. The temperature was dropping, unnaturally fast, and in the mountains to the north, shepherds reported strange sounds in the night, deep, resonant sounds, like breathing. The dragons were restless. After the council session, Mira and Edric retreated to his private study. They'd fallen into an easy routine over the past months. By day, they maintained the proper distance of king and spymaster, but by night, behind closed doors, they were simply Edric and Mira, 2 people trying to navigate something neither had planned for. "Selene sent word," Mira said, handing him a sealed letter. "She's tracking the temperature changes. It's not natural weather." Edric broke the seal and read, his expression growing graver. "She thinks the compact is weakening. She thinks someone is deliberately trying to break it." Mira poured wine for both of them. "The question is who?" "Hemwick's trial is next week. He's been isolated in the tower, no visitors except his lawyer and the guards." Edric accepted the wine, sipping thoughtfully. Could he have set something in motion before his arrest? Possibly, or one of his allies might be continuing his work. Mira settled into the chair across from him. But there's another possibility. What if it's not about the war at all? "Explain." "The compact is tied to just rule. But justice isn't just about preventing wars. It's about how you treat your people." Mira leaned forward. "You've been making changes, Edric, raising minimum wages for palace staff, reforming the debtors' prisons, redirecting military funds to schools and hospitals. What if someone powerful doesn't like those changes?" "You think the nobility is trying to wake dragons to get rid of me?" Edric's laugh was bitter. "That seems short-sighted, even for them." "Unless they don't believe in the dragons, unless they think it's all superstition and they're just creating chaos to undermine your rule." Mira stood, pacing to the window. "We need Selene, and we need to find out who's behind this before—" A tremor ran through the palace, subtle but unmistakable. Wine sloshed in their cups. In the distance, bells began to ring in alarm. Edric was on his feet immediately. What was that? The door burst open, one of the royal guards, face pale. "Your Majesty, you need to see this. The northern sky." They ran. From the highest tower of the palace they could see it clearly. The northern horizon glowed with an eerie red light, pulsing like a heartbeat, and rising from the Worm Mountains, visible even at this distance, were shapes, multiple shapes. Dragons, more than one. "Gods," Edric whispered. Selene appeared beside them, breathless. "It's happening faster than I thought. Someone has deliberately violated the compact, not just bent it, shattered it." "How?" Mira demanded. "Blood magic, a sacrifice." Selene's face was grim. "Someone has killed in the king's name, committed murder, and laid it at your feet. The compact reads intent and action both. If a king's agents commit atrocity in his service—" "I haven't ordered anyone killed," protested Edric. "Then someone wants it to look like you did." Mira's mind was already racing through possibilities. "Who have we arrested in the past 3 months? Who might have enemies that could frame this as royal vengeance?" Edric's face went pale. "Hemwick, his trial is in 3 days. If someone killed one of his co-conspirators and made it look like I ordered it, we need to check the prisoners. Now." They descended the tower at a run, guards falling in behind them. The palace was in chaos, servants and courtiers staring at the red glow on the horizon, some praying, others fleeing. The tower prison was at the palace's lowest level, carved into bedrock. The head jailer met them at the gate, keys jangling in his shaking hands. "Your Majesty, I don't know what happened. We checked on the prisoners 2 hours ago. Everything was normal." "Show me," Edric commanded.
They moved through the cell block. Most of the prisoners were Hemwick's co-conspirators, minor nobles and officials who'd helped with the forgeries. They pressed against their bars, calling out questions, demands, prayers. But one cell was silent. Lord Castor Vey lay on the stone floor in a pool of blood, his throat cut. On the wall above him, written in his own blood, were words that made Mira's heart sink. By order of the king. "I didn't," Edric said, his voice hollow. "I never." "I know." Mira knelt beside the body, examining the wound. This was professional, clean-cut, minimal struggle. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. "And they wanted to make sure everyone knew you ordered it," Selene added, studying the bloody message. "They was cooperating with the investigation. He was going to testify against Hemwick. His death serves two purposes, eliminates a witness, and breaks the compact." Another tremor shook the prison. Dust fell from the ceiling. In the distance, they could hear roaring, deep, ancient, terrible. "How long before the dragons reach the city?" Edric asked. "Hours, maybe less." Selene's voice was strained. "They're not fully awake yet, but they're angry. The compact has been their peace for 3,000 years, and now it's broken. They'll come to find the one responsible." "Me?" Edric said quietly. "No," Mira stood, her mind crystallizing around a plan. "Not if we can prove you didn't order this. Not if we can find who really did and present them to the dragons as the true compact breaker."
How do we prove innocence to dragons? The same way we proved Hemwick's guilt to the council. Mira looked at Selene. Truthsayer oath. In front of the dragons themselves. Selene's eyes widened. You want to negotiate with dragons? I want to survive them. Is there another option? Several, all of them involving running very far away, but Selene was smiling, that sharp, dangerous smile. But your plan might work. Dragons respect courage and truth above all else. If we can face them, if Edric can swear his innocence under oath, and if we can deliver the real killer, Mira finished. Edric looked between them. You're both insane. Probably, Mira agreed, but we're all you've got. Now, let's figure out who wanted Vey dead badly enough to wake dragons. The investigation moved fast. They had hours, not days. Mira interrogated the guards who'd been on duty. None had seen anyone enter Vey's cell, but two reported a hooded figure in the corridor during the shift change. The description was vague. Medium height, dark cloak, moving with purpose. Professional, like Mira herself. Another assassin. She checked with her contacts in the city's underworld, sent runners to every poison worker and blade for hire she knew. Most of them had gone to ground, smart, with dragons on the horizon, but one sent back a message. Check the Raven's Nest, someone hired for royal work 3 days ago. The Raven's Nest was a tavern in the warehouse district, where contract killers gathered to negotiate terms. Mira knew it well. She'd gotten her first job there 15 years ago. She went alone, despite Edric's protests. This was her world, and she needed to move in it unencumbered by guards and crowns. The tavern was nearly empty, most of its patrons having fled the city, but the proprietor, a scarred woman named Vale, was still behind the bar, calmly polishing glasses as if dragons weren't roosting in the mountains. Mira Thane, heard you went legitimate, captain of intelligence they're calling you.
I need information, Vale. Don't we all? Vale poured 2 drinks, slid one across. I assume this is about whoever killed Vey in the royal prison. You know about that already? Everyone knows. The killer was in here celebrating an hour ago. Vale's smile was cold. Stupid. Really stupid. You don't celebrate a job until you're out of the city, and you certainly don't do it when dragons are coming. Who was it? Torvin Grey. Mira's blood went cold. The same assassin who'd tried to kill Edric months ago, the one who'd escaped. Where is he now? Safe house in the Copper District, number 43, Blue Door. Vale leaned forward. He was hired by someone at court. Wouldn't say who, but they paid in royal coin, fresh minted, with your new king's face on it. Mira slid gold across the bar. If anyone asks, you didn't see me. See who? Vale pocketed the gold and returned to her glasses. Number 43 was a nondescript building wedged between a tannery and a shuttered shop. Mira watched it from a rooftop across the street, marking the exits, the windows, the sight lines. Torvin was inside. She could see his shadow moving past the curtains. She could go in fast and violent, the way she used to, pin him down, make him talk. But Torvin was skilled, and she was out of practice with direct confrontation. She'd been playing politics for 3 months, not stalking targets. Better to be smart. She climbed down and knocked on the door. Torvin opened it with a knife in his hand and suspicion on his face. When he saw her, he smiled. "The king's poison worker, come to finish our dance from last time." "Come to make a deal," Mira said. "The dragons are coming, Torvin. You know what that means." "Means I should be leaving the city, soon as I collect my final payment." "From who?" "That's confidential." "The compact is broken. Dragons are going to burn everything between here and the mountains looking for who's responsible. That's you, Torvin. You killed Vey. You broke the compact. When the dragons come, they'll smell your guilt." Torvin's smile faltered. "That's not how it works." "Isn't it? You think ancient magic cares about contracts and middlemen? You're the one who spilled blood in violation of the compact. You're the one the dragons will want." She could see him thinking, weighing odds. Torvin was a professional, not a fanatic. He killed for money, not ideology, and he very much wanted to keep living. "What kind of deal?" he asked finally. "Tell me who hired you. Testify before the council and the dragons. In exchange, the king grants you exile instead of execution. You leave the 3 kingdoms tonight and never come back." "And if I refuse?" "Then I let the dragons find you themselves. I hear they prefer their meals cooked." Another tremor shook the city. Somewhere close, something roared. Torvin's face went gray. "Prince Gareth, Hemwick's nephew. He hired me. Said the kingdom needed chaos, needed people to lose faith in the new king. Said if Edric fell, he'd take the throne and I'd be rich for life." Mira felt cold satisfaction settle in her chest. Gareth, of course, Hemwick's heir, trying to finish what his uncle started. "You'll swear to this, in front of witnesses?" "If it means I get to leave alive, yes." "Then come with me. And Torvin, if you try to run, I'll hunt you myself, and I won't be negotiating." Dawn was breaking when they assembled on the palace's northern terrace. The dragons had come closer during the night, circling the city, their shadows vast against the clouds. The entire small council was present, along with the high judge and a squadron of guards. Prince Gareth stood among them, his face carefully neutral, though Mira saw fear in his eyes. He knew they'd found Torvin. Edric stood at the terrace's edge, facing the dragons. He'd refused his crown for this, said he'd face them as a man, not a king. Selene stood beside him, her hands raised, speaking in a language that predated the 3 kingdoms. The words seemed to resonate with the air itself, carrying across the distance to where the dragons circled. One of them descended. It was massive beyond comprehension, scales like burnished copper, wings that created windstorms as they beat. It landed on the terrace with earth-shaking force, its head alone larger than a horse-drawn carriage. Golden eyes, ancient and intelligent, fixed on Edric. When it spoke, the voice was like mountains grinding together, but the words were clear. "Who breaks the compact?" Edric didn't flinch. "I am Edric, king of the 3 kingdoms. I do not break the compact. I stand before you to swear this truth. Blood was spilled, murder done in your name. Not by my order, not by my wish." Edric's voice was steady. "I ask for the right to prove my innocence under truthsayer oath as the ancient laws allow." The dragon's gaze shifted to Selene. "Truthsayer, do your work." Selene stepped forward, placing her hand on Edric's shoulder.
Her voice rang out clear. "Edric, King of the Three Kingdoms, did you order the death of Lord Castor Vey? No. Did you desire his death? No.
Have you violated the compact in any way, through action or intent? No. I have tried to rule justly. I have tried to keep the peace. I swear this on my life and crown." Selene's eyes glowed with witchlight. After a moment, she turned to the dragon. "He speaks truth. No lie taints his words." The dragon's attention swept across the assembled courtiers. "Then who bears the guilt?" Mira stepped forward, dragging Torvin with her. "This man killed Lord Vey. He was hired by Prince Gareth, who sought to break the compact and destroy King Edric's rule." Gareth's face went white. "Lies! I never—" "Swear it," Selene said softly. "Swear under oath that you didn't hire Torvin Grey to commit murder." Gareth's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came. The dragon's growl was like distant thunder. "The guilty silence themselves." "No, please." Gareth fell to his knees. "I didn't know about the compact. I didn't know the dragons were real. I was just trying to take what should have been mine." "You murdered for a crown," the dragon rumbled. "You broke ancient law for ambition. This is the injustice that wakes us." The dragon's head turned toward Edric. "You who claim to rule justly, what is your judgment?" Edric looked at Gareth, then at the dragon, then out at the city spreading below them. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of true authority. "Gareth of House Hemwick, you are guilty of murder and treason. By the laws of this kingdom, the penalty is death." He paused. "But I will not add killing to killing. You are hereby exiled from the Three Kingdoms for life. You leave today, with nothing but the clothes on your back. If you ever return, the sentence will be carried out." The dragon studied him for a long moment, then, "Mercy tempered with justice. The old compact recognized not just punishment, but wisdom. You rule as the ancient kings did." The dragon rose, wings spreading. "The compact is restored. We return to our sleep. Rule well, King Edric. We will be watching." With a sound like a thunderclap, the dragon launched itself into the sky. The others followed, a procession of ancient power wheeling once around the palace before flying north, back to their mountain lairs. Silence fell across the terrace. Then High Judge Morven stepped forward and knelt. "Long live King Edric! Long live the just!" One by one, the others knelt, even Gareth, defeated and broken. Edric helped Morven to her feet, then addressed the assembly. "Rise, all of you. We've had enough kneeling today." As the crowd dispersed, as guards led Gareth and Torvin away to prepare for their exile, Mira found herself alone with Edric at the terrace's edge. "You showed them mercy," she said. "I showed them justice." He turned to her. "There's a difference. Hemwick taught me that, by showing what happens when you confuse the two." The dragons approved. "Did you?" Mira considered. 3 months ago, she would have killed Gareth without hesitation, would have seen mercy as weakness. But now, "Yes," she said, "I think I did." Edric's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing. "Thank you for finding the truth, for facing dragons, for," he smiled, "for not killing me when you had the chance. Best decision I ever made. Even though it's complicated, even though we have to hide this from the council, especially because of that." Mira squeezed his hand. "I've spent my whole life in the shadows, Edric. I'm comfortable there. And if being in the shadows means I can be with you..." He kissed her then, there on the terrace in the growing daylight where anyone could see. When she pulled back, startled, he smiled. "I'm done hiding," he said. "The dragons saw us. Let the council see us too. They'll talk. Let them. I'm the king. I get to make some decisions for myself." His expression grew serious. "Mira, I love you. I think I've loved you since that night in my study when you chose to protect me instead of kill me, and I'm tired of pretending I don't." Mira's heart hammered in her chest. Love. She'd never thought she'd hear that word directed at her, never thought she deserved it. "I'm not easy to love," she warned. "I have a past. I've done terrible things." "So have I. Different terrible things, perhaps, but terrible nonetheless." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "We can't change what we were. We can only choose what we become." "Then I choose this," Mira said. "I choose you. And yes, I love you too, even though it terrifies me." "Good," Edric said. "If it didn't terrify you, I'd worry you weren't taking it seriously." They stood together, watching the sun rise over Caldrus, over a kingdom saved from war and dragons, over a future neither of them could have imagined 3 months ago.
Epilogue: The Garden of Thorns. 6 months later, the cherry trees were blooming in the palace gardens, and Mira stood among them in a dress of dark green silk, feeling absurdly out of place. "You look beautiful," Selene said, adjusting the flowers woven into Mira's hair. "I look ridiculous." "You look happy. That's what's confusing you." Mira couldn't argue with that. Happiness was still new, still strange, but it was growing on her. The wedding was small, just the small council and a few trusted friends. Edric had wanted something intimate, and Mira had insisted on nothing that resembled a state affair. They'd compromised on a garden ceremony at sunset, with Selene officiating under the old laws. As Mira walked down the path between the cherry trees, she saw Edric waiting for her. He wore his crown. He'd wanted to marry her as both man and king, and his smile was bright enough to rival the setting sun. They spoke their vows in the ancient tongue, words that bound them not just legally, but magically, a thread of connection that would last lifetimes. When Selene pronounced them married, Edric kissed her to applause from their small gathering. "Queen Mira," he whispered against her lips, "has a nice sound to it. I'm keeping Captain of Intelligence in the official records. Queen sounds too formal." "You can be both." "I can be both," she agreed. At the reception, Lady Vex cornered Mira with wine and a knowing smile. "You know, when I first heard the king was courting his spy master, I thought it was a terrible idea. And now? Now, I think it's still a terrible idea, but one that seems to be working." Vex raised her glass. "To terrible ideas that somehow save kingdoms." Mira clinked her glass against Vex's. "I'll drink to that." Later, as the party wound down and guests drifted away, Mira and Edric found themselves alone in the garden, walking among the cherry blossoms in the gathering dark. "Do you ever wonder," Edric asked, "what would have happened if you'd completed that contract? If you'd poisoned me that first night?"
Every day, Mira admitted. The war would have happened. Hemwick would have put Gareth on the throne. The dragons would have burned the kingdom. We were lucky. We were smart and stubborn and possibly insane. She leaned against him as they walked. But yes, also lucky. They reached the heart of the garden, where a fountain trickled softly and stone benches offered rest. Edric drew her down beside him, his arm around her shoulders. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple silver, set with a dark blue stone. Poison worker's blue, the color of nightshade. "It's beautiful," Mira breathed. "It's a promise," Edric said, sliding it onto her finger beside her wedding band. "That I see all of you, not just the spy or the queen, but the poison worker who chose mercy,
The assassin who chose justice, all the parts of you, shadow and light. Mira blinked back tears. You're making me emotional. I hate that. No, you don't. No, I don't, she admitted, laughing through the tears. They sat in the garden as night fell, as stars emerged above the cherry blossoms, as the city around them settled into peaceful sleep. Somewhere in the north, dragons slumbered in their mountain lairs. Somewhere in exile, Prince Gareth began a new life. Somewhere in the palace dungeons, Chancellor Hemwick awaited his execution, scheduled for next week. The kingdom was healing, slowly, imperfectly, but healing. And in the garden, a king and his queen sat together in the gathering dark, building a future from the ruins of their pasts. Do you know what I love most about you? Edric asked softly. My extensive knowledge of poisons? Your hope. He kissed her temple. You've seen the worst of humanity, done things you regret, lived in the shadows for years, and still you chose to believe things could be better, that you could be better, that we could build something good. I chose you, Mira corrected. Everything else followed from that. Then I'm glad you chose poorly that night, glad you let me live. Best mistake I ever made. They sat in comfortable silence, holding each other as the moon rose and the garden filled with silver light. In the distance, an owl called. A night bird answered. The world turned, and they turned with it. And in the heart of the palace gardens, among the cherry blossoms and the thorns, a poison worker and a king built their happiness one quiet moment at a time. For some endings are also beginnings, and some shadows learn to love the light. The end.